Shane Stacks on the radio.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Shall we play a game?
Why, yes. I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Shane Plays Geek Talk. A journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for joining me on this November 30th. If you're listening live, it is November 30th, Saturday, November 30th at a little after 1 p.m. Central on 101.1 FM, The Answer, or if you're listening to the online stream, I know there's some listeners, that's the only way they listen. Glad to have you. 101.1 FM, theanswer.com. And then, of course, if you're listening by podcast or on YouTube or one of the many other ways the show goes out, really, really glad to have you. So it's been a while. Zach just walked in. Zach, how long are you going to be here? Because I got to banter with you a little bit. Are you about to split?
Oh, I could be here for another about 8 minutes if you need me.
Okay, well, go ahead and set in because I'm going to banter with you a little bit. I got to banter with Zach. But yeah, we've been off the air on hiatus, I should say, while Ouachita Baptist football has been going on. I think we had one show early. We had one show in October, and
right,
I think this is our first show in November.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had so we've been we're back.
Yeah,
we're back, baby. And today's a big one. I've got the man himself, Mitch Breitweiser.
It's been a long time.
Zach was
you are. It's been a long time.
We got Zach too, and we got John running the board. Right.
I am running the board.
You are running the board.
I am pressing buttons, not paying attention. There you go.
That's all right. You're always welcome to. I like to make this just a big. Everybody jump in and have some fun. But yeah, John's running the board. Zach's got to go do something. You're off running another game or something, right?
The Trojans play basketball at 2:00.
And you scorekeeper, right?
I'm the video replay tech.
Video replay tech. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, anyway, I'll get to you here in a second, Zach, because I got to have the Zach banter. But yeah, today we're glad to be back on the air. Nice to have a break, but I love doing Shane Plays. Absolutely excited to have Mitch Breitweiser. So many exciting things going on with comic book artist and now comic book company. Well, how would you even describe yourself? Are you the CEO? What are you?
Founder, I guess, and chairman, I suppose.
Chief cat herder?
I guess. I don't know. The titles are kind of pointless. Just founder and chief doer of things.
Chief doer of things. And there's big things going on of Allegiance Arts and Entertainment.
That's it.
And if you haven't been seeing all of this stuff on social media, look for Allegiance Arts on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and there's daily updates going out on 4 blockbuster new comics that are coming your way. And this story is exciting, not just for the comic books themselves, because the titles are great and the creators behind them are amazing. But the method that these comic books are getting out there is a big story in and of itself. So make sure to keep listening for that. We got some other ground to cover, but we will come back to that. Just a quick note before we dig in to today's show. There's a lot of really good stuff that we cover with Mitch Breitweiser of Allegiance Arts and well-known comic artist. But we don't dig in until later in the show to something that's very important, which is the work that they're doing with Allegiance Arts and related Indiegogo and some other things. So I just want to make sure to point that out. If you go to allegiancearts.com, that should forward you to the Indiegogo, or if the Indiegogo is over, it'll just take you to their website. Or you can search for The Futurists or Allegiance Arts on Indiegogo. And there's a really important comics bundle that they're doing to get comics into a major retailer. And there's a big reveal later in the podcast. So I just wanted to point that out since we don't really dig into that till later in the podcast and, buried the lead a little bit. But it's all good. So much good discussion here. I appreciate Mitch coming on. Mitch, I'm honored you're on because you've been head down for a while now and haven't been doing a lot of. I know you've done some YouTube on your channel,
That's right.
But you haven't been doing a lot of radio or podcasts or anything.
No, I've been pulled way back.
Yeah.
There was a season for everything, and there was a season to promote, and that was a while ago, and it'll come back again soon.
Right. Well, I'm honored that you're on. I appreciate you taking the time because I know that you were working, and we'll get to that here in a second. And then you came over here to the show, and then you're going to go back home and work again. You were sharing with me that you worked Thanksgiving, You've already told all your family that you're working through
I'm
holidays.
checking out through the holidays this year.
So
everybody knows.
You're head down.
That's
big
right.
time. So, all right.
Elizabeth too.
Well, let me go ahead and ask. I got two crucial questions for you, and then I'm going to get over to Zach so he can go do his thing. One, Mitch, I know people are just dying to know, what is your favorite breakfast cereal?
No, that's a curveball. I like oatmeal with maple
okay,
syrup.
that's your favorite? Okay.
Yeah, I guess. Does that count?
Okay. Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
It's breakfast cereal adjacent.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like when you were a little kid sitting in front of the TV watching Saturday morning cartoons, is that what you had? Or would you get like, what would you get?
I would eat, it's really boring, but I'd eat bran flakes.
Well, if that's what you like.
Heavily sugared, but I'd eat bran flakes. And
that's why you're so tall.
I'd crush them up.
Yeah.
I'd take the whole bag of bran flakes and crush them up until they're real crumbly.
Yeah.
And then put it on milk, and that's how I ate my breakfast cereal.
All right. So here's the other question that people are also wanting to know.
Very regular.
Yeah. Were you? I bet you were. We've entered the TMI zone on Shane Plays Geek Talk. All right. The other question that's I know just people genuinely want to know, including me, because I can't wait to read this thing. What's the update? I just want to go ahead and get to this because I know there's people that just on the edge of their seats. What's the current status on Red Rooster?
Oh, yes.
It's in progress and will be out sometime in Q1, and along with other Allegiance books, and the pre-orders for the Indiegogo will be arriving around the same time. So Q1 2020.
Okay.
It's in progress if you want to follow along. I'm updating all the social media all the time, so my own personal social media.
Well, if people...
It's a little behind, but I think we had a good reason.
Yeah. Well, and we'll get to that later in the show. There's been a lot of genuine, honest confusion, but also, in my opinion, some either, and I always give people the benefit of the doubt, either some accidental misinformation or maybe some purposeful information at times, misinformation, on Red Rooster and this new venture that Mitch has. Mitch did not ask me to say this. I didn't even tell Mitch I was going to say this, but I want to say this as a friend of Mitch, as a fan of what Allegiance Arts is doing, and as a fan of the truth. Because I don't mind if people don't like something, but base it on the facts.
Yeah.
It bothers me. I think, Mitch, one of your favorite things to say is that a lie will get halfway around the world before the truth can get its pants on. And a lot of times people propagate a lie without realize they're doing so. You know, they see it online and they assume it's the truth or whatever. So I'm not saying that a lot of this was on purpose or whatever, but no funds, not a single fund that was raised for Red Rooster is not being used for Red Rooster. There's people that for whatever reason they assume that some funds that were raised on crowdfunding for Red Rooster are being used to facilitate this new comic book venture. And it's not.
It's a separate
right.
A bank account, separate funding.
It's completely separate.
In a sense, it is, but one did grow out of another.
One grew out of another.
The success of the Red Rooster campaign and pitch and art we were posting led to a series of opportunities that led to us being able to launch a publishing company.
Right. So that's important for me to get out there. And again, Mitch didn't ask me to say that. Another thing I want to point out, because I've seen it. There was kind of a cheeky Save Kelsey hashtag for Kelsey Shannon, who's working on more than one property. He's working on at least Nora's Saga.
Yeah, and then he's coloring the Bass Reeves project.
The Bass Reeves.
For David Williams, the artist.
Kelsey Shannon is his own man, and I can tell you from firsthand knowledge and observing what happened, he was not told to get off Twitter by anybody. He made that decision on his own. And then I think he's actually, because he saw, sometimes online communication can get to where it's just, it's hurting things or there's misconceptions or whatever. And Kelsey just said, I'm going to remove myself for a little while. Nobody told him to do that. He is his own man. And I just want to point that out because that was another piece of misinformation I saw flying around out there. But I think he's back on Twitter now.
He may be.
Yeah, you can't.
I'm not on, so I don't know what's
here's
going on.
what I want to know. Who out there that knows Kelsey actually thinks anybody would be able to tell him what he can and can't do? Kelsey is the very definition of a free spirit.
Yeah.
So
it's actually pretty accurate.
Yeah. So, and I just wanted to address those two things from my perspective, but I'm going to move on. But Mitch, is there anything you wanted to add to any of that?
No, we're all good.
Okay, cool. All
onward.
right. Well, we're going to be talking about comic books and Allegiance Arts and Entertainment today. I gotta talk to my man Zach real quick. So, Zach, how much time you got before you got to bail out of here?
About 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes. Okay, we got to get some Zach banter in because there are people out there who the only reason Muffin. Sal's grandmother and her dog Muffin. Sal's the head of our news team. We still have this continuing Muffin situation. In fact, so we were off the air on hiatus until Ouachita Baptist was out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so they won their first playoff. That was
their first playoff.
Their first playoff game they lost. Now, the Mobley Detective Agency cannot confirm or deny reports of a suspicious dog in the shadows. Did you hear anything about this at this game?
No, I have not.
Okay, I heard reports of possible bribes or a dog biting somebody's hamstring. I don't know. But Sal, the head of our news team, his grandmother and her dog Muffin, if they don't get to hear Zach, they get upset. And I'm guessing that, they probably weren't real happy about football.
Something was done because the defense wasn't playing last week. So something was done.
The defense didn't show?
Oh, it didn't show up.
The defense. All right. So I got some other questions, or I got some other things to ask you. Now, I know I asked you last year about Thanksgiving, and what it finally came out was the only thing you eat at Thanksgiving is mac and cheese. Did you have some mac and cheese?
I had a full plate of macaroni and cheese.
Did you eat anything else?
Had turkey.
You did eat turkey.
I had turkey and had some rolls.
You had some rolls? All right. But mac and cheese. Last night we had like kind of a second Thanksgiving with leftovers. And I kept calling it mac and cheese. And my 6-year-old was like, "It's cheese." I'm like, "Man, this mac and cheese is delicious."
Wow.
Yeah.
And he's 6 now. Wow.
He is 6 now.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. He's having a lot of fun. His thing is, have you ever heard of a video game called Spore?
No, I have not.
It came out about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And he saw a Let's Play video of it on YouTube, and he asked for it. And I got it for him on his birthday, and that's all he does now is play Spore. So what's your big dish at Thanksgiving that you like to throw down on?
Dumplings.
Dumplings?
Yeah.
I could do some dumplings. Yeah?
That's my thing.
What about you, John? Are you? What's your favorite
I'm big into mac and cheese myself.
Mac and cheese?
But we can't miss out on cranberry.
I gotta have the cranberry.
Cranberry.
I like turkey. I like it all. I like all the traditional Thanksgiving stuff. But anyway, all right, did you see? Got a few things, because I got a few banter things with you because we haven't bantered in a while.
Yeah.
All right. Did you see the Goku float not the float, but the balloon at the Macy's Thanksgiving parade?
But see, I don't even watch the Thanksgiving parade.
But did you even see it on social media?
I did not see it at all.
Okay.
Nope.
I think that might have been the first year they did Goku. I'm not sure.
I think, matter of fact, someone told me about that.
So well, I posted it. If I follow your Twitter because I love you, but you obviously didn't see my Twitter because
so many tweets.
Yeah,
just refreshing the timeline.
Yeah,
so many.
If anybody wants to get the best in Twitter sports analysis, you need to follow Z.A. Thomas 1938.
Yep, Z.A. Thomas 1938.
Z.A. Thomas. All right, let's see what else I got here for you. Okay, I got to ask you this.
Okay.
Have you seen The Mandalorian yet?
No, I'm getting there though.
Oh,
I'm
man.
getting there,
dude.
I've heard it described as a movie, but it's a television series.
It's good. It's good.
I'll get to it.
And I love me some Baby Yoda. I don't know if it's Baby Yoda because Yoda's not a species, but I still love me some Baby Yoda.
Well, see, I can't wait for The Witcher. I've been reading the books.
You've been waiting for The Witcher? Well, they're also doing a Blade Runner anime I just heard about today.
Really?
Yeah. I got to ask, Mitch, I know you got some, you've obviously got some comic book history. Do you remember a comic in the 80s? It made a big splash in the 80s. It was called Lone Wolf and Cub.
Oh, yeah.
And it had like a samurai with the little kid on his back.
I forget who created it.
That's The Mandalorian.
Oh, yes, I wondered about that.
There's a Mandalorian running around with a little baby, and I guess that's not a spoiler anymore.
No.
That is it's either and nobody knows, it's either a baby of Yoda's species, or maybe it's a clone of Yoda. But it's basically Lone Wolf and Cub. And it's very much an outer space Western.
Yeah.
And as you know, most Westerns samurai movies and Westerns have a lot in common.
Okay, when is it set, the series?
It is set after the fall of, it's set after Return of the Jedi.
Oh.
But before The Force Awakens. Because the Empire is gone.
Gotcha. Yeah.
The Empire, well, there's little remnants, but there's no more Empire.
Okay.
And it's basically a Western. And it is good.
I'm going to get to it.
Yeah.
I like to say, there's so much out there.
Yeah.
There's literally so much out there to watch.
You need to watch Mandalorian.
I'm going to watch it.
You need to watch it.
I will.
Are you going to watch it?
Not tonight.
Okay, it's good. All right. I love you, Zach, but I got to get back to Mitch. Watch The Mandalorian. Go get you some Kraft macaroni and cheese and cook it up and watch The Mandalorian.
I'll get to it at some point.
All right.
Probably the next couple of weeks.
All right. Well, it's good to see you, buddy.
Nice seeing you, too.
All right, man.
Nice to see you.
We're going to get back to Mr. Mitch here. Well, before we get into Allegiance Arts and everything else, is there anything that you want to mention that you, like when you showed up today, you're like, I want to make sure to mention this, or if I don't mention this, Elizabeth will hit me in the back of the head?
Well, I'll shout out Elizabeth, I guess.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
Sure.
And now, what is her role? I know for a while she was doing a lot of the talent management, talent acquisition,
When you're doing something like this, it's like you are being ejected out of a cannon,
right?
And you're spiraling through it, just trying to grab on and do anything you can to make something happen and make the cannonball just go as far as it can. And so everybody kind of is doing everything,
doing a little bit of everything
at the outset. You
right.
know, when you're trying to launch a publishing company off of, I guess what at the start was kind of some long shot ideas and
right.
and things have been working really hard at for a number of years, but. We just everybody was wearing a lot of hats until the roles started to parse out. And she's coloring. Obviously, she's going to color Red Rooster, and she's still coloring Outcast for Robert Kirkman of Walking Dead fame. So that book is still going. A few more issues left, and then she's like the eyes in the back of everybody's heads. She keeps everything together, I suppose, for the most part. And then she's really good with all the talent,
right.
Which I'm okay. I'm like I'm so focused on like singular tasks that she's so empathetic that she's good with the people. So
right.
that works for us.
So I know that you spent a lot of your time there for a while, and I'll let you flesh this out, but as I've heard you describe it, you kind of like life happened when you were making other plans. And this stuff came your way, these opportunities that were almost once in a lifetime opportunities to get comic books into venues that they haven't been in a long time, or maybe never have been in.
Well, maybe we should dial it back a little bit more and set the stage about
let's do
what
that.
happened with comic books. Because I think that's really kind of the crux of the whole story it's almost like a curse was put on the entire comic book industry like 25 years ago, where Marvel and DC Comics, the nearly bankrupt back then Marvel Comics, which of course now owned by Disney, they signed on to this deal with Diamond Distribution, which is one of, at the time, of several regional or somewhat quasi-national comic book distributors.
Right.
Essentially, they signed on with, I forget all the particulars, this was 25 years ago, but somehow Diamond emerged as the single distributor nationwide for comic book stores, and Marvel and DC signed on to distribute with Diamond, and then about that time, they just gone from all the grocery stores, Walmarts, local pharmacies, national pharmacy chains, basically nearly overnight, just gone. What was a pretty huge market segment in that newsstand business.
And they went from being ubiquitous, which I can attest to. I mean, my love of comics started with the spinner rack. Mm-hmm. Like I would go to the convenience store to see what was in the spinner rack.
Yeah.
And they they positioned themselves, they purposefully made themselves a niche industry or a niche entertainment that you had to seek out instead of it coming to you.
Yes. And that was, and to me, I think there's a place for comic book stores and a place for great comic book stores. And we still have several. I think so too. We have several here in town, actually. We're actually pretty fortunate for our population density to have the number and quality of stores that we have compared to the rest of the country. But the rest of the country isn't necessarily like that. Maybe up on the East Coast or whatnot. But essentially, as I looked across like comic book fandom, I saw, well, first of all, you had this component of that wasn't bringing in fresh blood. So we have the comic book stores, and they're a great place for community. And for collectors and for subscribers and people that just want to get their fix every single week. But it's not a great place necessarily for discovery,
right? Like
just man on the street discovery. And that was the missing quotient, in my opinion, and in our opinion, as Allegiance and Elizabeth and our partner David, of this cycle of new readership that had to be done to create an industry that grows constantly rather than shrinks. Because if you're not putting in fresh blood, if you don't have, it's like a fisherman who's not putting any bait on his hook. There's no bait way out there.
Well, one of the complaints from, I don't know if it's a complaint, I'm sure it's an internal complaint of the bigger comic book companies, Marvel, DC, I would even say, Image is, they're a big publishing house, is that the comic book average consumer has been aging up. But they did that to themselves by making it so you had to seek it out rather than coming to you. I mean, I literally remember, I was born in 72, so I grew up in the 70s and 80s. I remember when comic books were like any other entertainment. They were like TV. They were like records. Everybody had them. It was just part of the culture. And that's why all of these iconic DC and Marvel characters are so deep into our culture, not because of comic book stores. And I'm like you, I'm not against a comic book store. They can offer services and they can sell items and versions of comic books that would be really hard to get into. But a spinner rack, I would not cry. In fact, I would rejoice if a spinner rack showed up in I think a spinner rack in every convenience store would help comic book stores rather than hurt them.
110%.
Right.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Right.
I think there's a strong case to be made there.
Right. And so a couple of things happen. I agree with everything you're saying. A couple of things happen that really, in my opinion, messed up the comic book industry as it had been. Like, I literally remember, man, like everybody was like, what are you going to do today? Why don't you go get your comic books? I'll get my comic books. I remember like my friend's sisters had piles of, everybody had comic books. Just everybody had them. All kinds of genres. And cause you could get them anywhere. And then a couple of things happened. One, they did the distribution thing, which mainly helped the comic book stores. It became that, that direct market model. But another thing that really messed up comic books, in my opinion, and hurt store owners was that stores can no longer return unsold merchandise. Yeah. So when you see that, for example, Marvel or whoever, they print Deadpool, Wolverine, #1 with a special cover. And they're like, we shipped 1 million units. All that means is that they managed to get comic book stores to buy 1 million of them.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We have no idea how many were actually bought by. So their customer is now the comic book store, not me or you. And that's why you have all this variant cover ridiculousness. You got to order 10 of the main cover to get one of the variant cover. And if you don't get the variant cover, then the comic book store's customer is going to be mad at them.
Yeah.
Right?
It's crazy it's not. It doesn't serve the comic book store, right? Because they're taking all this risk. So in some ways, it's kind of an abusive relationship.
It really is.
And I feel really bad for these people because I did, any chance I get, I talk to a comic book store owner.
Right. I'll mention one by name, Michael Tierney, who's the sponsor of this show. I've been shopping with him since I was in 7th grade. And he was one of the first people to have a comic book store.
Yeah, he's really clued into all this stuff.
Yeah, and he writes, an analysis every year for Overstreet Comic Book Price. And most people put like a paragraph or two. His stuff is pages long where he will really analyze what's going on with the industry. But he's every week. Another problem that's going on is he gets shorted by Diamond every week.
Yeah, I hear
every
that.
week Diamond shorts him on issues.
So he's taking all the risk and getting terrible service. So the companies are forcing him to take all the risk, and then Diamond is not offering. Well, they're offering the service that a monopoly would offer.
Right.
You would expect a monopoly would offer.
It is a monopoly, and according to Michael and others, the reasons the government won't get involved is because the comic book industry, even though it's very important to us, is not big enough economically for the government to want to get involved. But it's no doubt a monopoly.
Yes.
Now this is hearsay. Take this with a grain of salt. Research it on your own. From what I understand, is the person that first started Diamond did a very good job with it, but they've retired and it's been handed off to others who don't care as much. Now that's hearsay, so you need to research that.
I know a little bit more.
Yeah.
I know a little bit more than that because I do.
Right.
Secondhand knowledge, but essentially at the time that Diamond was built as a company, though, they were fighting competition.
Right.
Right. So it wasn't a monopoly. It didn't start as a
Competition
monopoly.
leads to excellence.
Right. It was evidently a really well run company and with a lot of growth potential, and obviously it did grow and now consumed all the others, and now they have a monopoly. When you take a step back though, and you look at this as a position from a comic book company owner, like it's a pretty sweet deal because you get to sell your product to a comic book store owner.
Right.
Several, at the time, 10,000 of them, now just 2 or less, or probably quite a bit less. But
are you talking about 2,000?
Yeah, 2,000 comic book
closed.
stores.
A lot of closed.
About 2,000 comic book stores left, and many of those aren't like really big comic book stores. They're just really small shops. But the comic book company gets to sell comic books 3 months in advance, so it's 1 quarter. So from their perspective,
are you talking about like Diamond, the distribution company?
So comic book stores make their orders to Diamond for those that are uninitiated to this whole process. They make these orders 3 months in advance. So as a publisher, basically a quarter in advance what your next quarter's profits will be, automatic, every single time. Just boom, 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 boom.
It's good
from
for the
from the publisher's perspective, it makes perfect sense, except that they don't bring any fresh blood into this process because they're just ringing that store, the cash register at the comic book store every single month, and not tapping it into a new customer base into the wild. Right. They're counting on their ancillary products like T-shirts and just the pervasiveness of these things in the culture to draw people back to that. But at this point, it's a non-issue because they don't need to draw people back to the comic book stores because Disney now makes so much more money selling you a movie ticket and a T-shirt, with the characters that very different from the ones in the comic books.
IP becomes more lucrative than the comic book, but the IP wouldn't be there without the comic book. So we can't kick comic books to the curb and treat them like in a lot of other countries. And I'm not saying we have to follow other countries' lead on everything. There's a lot of stuff that politically I don't agree with that other countries do. But in a lot of other countries, comic books and comic book artists are treated very like artists, And here in the States, it's getting a little bit better, but it's still very much of like, this is a commercial property and, we're going to milk it for all it's worth, and artists are disposable, right?
Yeah. Well, so, in a sense, I don't know. It definitely works for. The way comic books are and exist today is uniquely American and very different from everywhere else.
Well, it is, and it could be argued that jazz and comic books are the only true American art forms. I've heard that argument. But it is kind of business wise, it's not in the best state of affairs. It's not. It's in a downward spiral.
And in my opinion, which is not the way it should be in America. Because we are the progenitors of the comic book. And have embraced it, embraced it in a way at a much larger scale than many other countries, probably excluding Japan.
Japan, and I don't think people understand how pervasive manga is. I mean, everybody reads it. Businessmen will read it on the subway or whatever. I mean, it's just part of the culture.
Right. Yeah. But the level, they are very different and uniquely their own. But it's interesting that it's in such a bad fiscal position in this country, which it shouldn't be. And that's one of the things we hope to fix, obviously.
Well, it's, what do you call it? The diminishing returns. They're in that cycle of diminishing returns because the customer base is smaller. And so they keep trying to do gimmicks and, and manipulate the comic book store owners to ship more product. Whereas, and I've got to give a shout out here because Alterna Comics and Peter Simeti's been out there for a few years fighting the same fight. And he's printing comic books on newsprint to get the price down, to make it an easier risk. But he's also starting to get them in convenience stores. And Peter Simeti's, I'm talking with him to get him on. Good. But, Peter Simeti's a hero of mine in the comics industry. What you guys are doing with Allegiance, I have nothing but amazing. I think it's all going to come together to make the industry better. So what's fascinating about Allegiance's story, we're about to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Allegiance Arts and the comic books you're doing and the excitement there. But not only are the titles you're doing and the creators you're working with amazeballs, they're amazer beams. Indeed. But you're going to help the industry because you're getting comic books into places that, again, they've either never been or that they haven't been in like 20 years. And that's a big flipping deal. So, but yeah, I agree, man. There's so many problems with, and I think that the larger comic book companies, they're almost caught in this cycle. Like, how do we get out of this? Because if we try to fix it for the consumer, we mess up Diamond. If we try to fix it for the comic book companies, we mess up it's like no matter which way they go, they rock the boat for somebody.
They're in a position, the only out I've thought about this a great deal, especially last year as we were building all this. From my perspective, they're in a position where they have to transform themselves into the corporate IP house for their larger parent companies,
right?
And quickly, or they'll all be out. They'll all be out of jobs, in my opinion.
Well, there's also, and we don't have time to go into it today. And I know if people go search for Mitch on YouTube, I know he's talked about this a lot. The quality of the comics and the purpose of why they're being published has changed quite a bit too. Fairly recently, an executive at Marvel lamented how the reprints were selling better than the current stuff. Well, what does that tell you, right? That's what people want. They don't want, it's, at its best. Now, comics as an art form can be something else. What I want out of mainstream comics, superhero beat 'em up, pow, I want escapist entertainment. And that's all I want. I don't want all this other stuff. So, and that's all I've talked about on the air and before. And like I said, search for Mitch Breitweiser on YouTube or whatever. And you'll find Mitch out there talking about it. I mean, this has been covered ad nauseum really at this point, but I'm going to get us to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about, the titles. There's 4 super cool titles for Allegiance Arts, that are coming out. I want to mention there's an Indiegogo going right now. Search for the Futurist Allegiance Arts.
The Futurists or Allegiance Arts or Allegiance Bundle on Indiegogo.
And that's got another week from today on Saturday. And then I'll push this podcast out quick so the people that get the podcast version will have a chance to get in on the Indiegogo. So you can get in on this right now and get special founders versions of these books before they hit retail stores. But we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Allegiance Arts and Entertainment and the 4 books that they're doing and the, in my opinion, mind-blowingly exciting places that these comic books are going to be sold when we come back on Shane Plays Geek Talk.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Are you a fan of thrilling adventure, daring suspense, and just a touch of romance? Kursova has you covered. Since 2016, Kursova has been publishing the very best in contemporary fantasy and science fiction, retro pulp, And for you D&D gamers, Appendix N style fiction. Based in Little Rock, you can pick up their flagship magazine locally or at Michael Tierney's The Comic Book Store on Treasure Hill Road or Collector's Edition on JFK in North Little Rock. Swing by one of Michael's stores and pick up an issue or find them on Amazon. CIRSOVA, doesn't start with a K, it starts with a C. CIRSOVA, Cursova Magazine. Check them out today. I want to go ahead and throw out some love to Game Goblins. Some goblins are your friends. Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer of Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and hobby accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. That's 501-224-GAME or gamegoblins.com. Conveniently located 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock, and staffed by friendly employees, Game Goblins has expanded their store size, and there's plenty of room for exciting inventory and tables for play space. You'll like that space because Game Goblins has gaming events every day of the week. For all of your gaming needs, I heartily recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. Game Goblins earns your business and keeps it. First-time customers, mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. Tell them Shane Plays sent you. And folks, if you do visit any of my sponsors, please tell them that you hear about them on the show. That helps them know that their advertising money and the relationship we've built is time and money well spent.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/Shane Plays.
Shane Stacks on the radio.
Oh yeah, I love that. Welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks, joined by Mitch Breitweiser, renowned and well known and beloved comic book artist who has done stuff with Marvel and others. In fact, if you like Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy movies and all that, he designed the current Drax design.
I did.
He did.
Responsible for that.
Yeah. So and you're just drowning in all of the money that Marvel gave you for that, right?
Yes, I guess.
That's what happens when you work for a corporate, it's what it is. But yeah, they've made a lot of money off that. So we'll just leave it at that. We're talking with Mitch today. We've been talking before the break about the state of not comic books as far as what's being published, although we're not super happy about a lot of that either, but really about the industry and the problems that the business side of it has, and what Mitch and Elizabeth, his lovely wife, and other folks he's working with. Let's give a shout out to Patrick, your editor-in-chief, and also he's done some writing on Futurist.
The Futurist, and he's the co-creator of that book and another one of the books as well.
Right. So we got Patrick, got your partner David, Kristen's in the mix helping out a lot on more of the business end. And then you've got these amazing creators you're working with, which we'll mention in a second. I got to hit some show notes, but the talent you've lined up is really good for these books. And these books, really, you've been promoting them as blockbuster entertainment, and I agree. I mean, it's a very strong lineup of books. And folks, don't forget, you can go to Indiegogo or just go search online for Allegiance Arts, The Futurist. It's Allegiance Arts.
Go to allegiancearts.com.
Yeah, and it'll
that
take
will
you
link
straight to the Indiegogo. That's right. Yeah.
Until the website goes live. Yeah,
right,
so hit allegiancearts.com now, and it'll link you to
right over the
Indiegogo, and you can pre-order and take a look at everything and watch the video that we have there about all these unique properties.
Yeah.
And then
did you put Kelsey's video up, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Kelsey's very good.
Kelsey's good at those
He's
videos.
a talent. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me throw out some show notes. We'll get back to that. Folks, don't forget that if you're listening to the podcast or YouTube version or Krypton radio version of the show, the show notes for today's show are up on shaneplays.com. That's ShanePlays.com. If you happen to be listening live, you got about 15 minutes, you could call in and talk to Mitch at 501-823-0965. That's 501-823-0965. You could also tweet me at Shane Plays. That's ShanePlays. Our last show, which was in October, is, of course, out as a podcast and everything. That was episode 202, OSR Chat, which is an old school Renaissance or however you want to call it, OSR tabletop RPG game. So OSR Chat and Arkansas RPG Con. And Arkansas RPG Con was fun this year. Check out our podcast on the blog at shaneplays.com, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Podbean, SoundCloud, YouTube, and more. And last, but never ever least, Shane Plays is carried on Krypton Radio. Krypton Radio is SciFi for your Wi-Fi. KryptonRadio.com. All right, so let's do a quick rundown of the 4 books that you're launching with, and you're doing things in seasons. Mm-hmm. So different seasons of we'll have different books. But the first, give us a quick rundown of your first season.
Okay.
That's coming out.
All right. So we're doing a few things differently. So we are Allegiance Arts is set out to basically respond to what we saw as an underserved market of comic book readers that didn't have access to comic book stores or just weren't shopping at comic book stores. And so we essentially hunted down mass market retailers like they were woolly mammoths, and
right.
Brought them down and are now eating them one bite at a time. My analogy is like going way off the
but it's a
here.
Fun analogy.
But
now you've glossed over some very critical, crucial, important meetings that you actually met and had to pitch. It wasn't, I mean, this was not an easy thing. And there were some relationships that, were involved that you might not have even gotten a chance. I mean, not just anybody could have, it all came together.
Yeah, we had it was very synchronistic, I would say, the whole experience of the last year or so many months since we've basically launched the Red Rooster campaign and are now working on the book. But it led to so many unique opportunities, I would say, which I just felt obviously I was compelled to say yes to because they were in service of creating a better comic book industry.
Well, and you've said that, you've tried to clarify that to people, but I really want to highlight that this wasn't something you could have done at any time. Everything came together. It was a perfect storm. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't chase it right then, you may not have had the chance again.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're like, well, I don't want to, Red Rooster, what the heck is that? It was
an opportunity to build a publishing company that essentially I felt like was going to be able to get out there and service fans, people that don't have access to comic book stores, that aren't discovering comic books, that are in communities where they don't have access to a lot of really stimulating outside entertainment.
I mean, to me, this is like big news.
I agree.
And I'm surprised it hasn't gotten more coverage. It will.
It will once we're out pushing it.
But how much do you want to? I'm so excited. I'm just like, but how much do you want to share about where people might be able to find comic books in the near future?
Walmart.
Say it again.
Walmart. Yes, starting in Walmart.
The retailer.
Yeah, so that's what happened after we spent many months building pitch
decks.
Dude,
I'm like, because the discoverability at Walmart is so amazing.
Yes, and that was the whole purpose and point of it. It's I don't care if we make, a penny. It's about getting these things in front of millions of eyeballs,
right?
Millions of pairs of eyeballs, and
like I said, this could literally help the entire comic book industry.
Yes,
the hobby, the entire creative and business ecosystem that is around comic books.
Yeah, I mean, you meet so many people that are you show them a comic book or whatever, and they say that they still make those.
Yeah,
things.
They still make those.
What? Yeah,
most people in their eyes. A lot of people literally think of comic books as the Batman TV show where it went bam, kapow, ba-boom. And that's where it is in their cultural identity. And they remember
every comic book fan has this experience with a layman person that they'll meet off the street or a family member or whatever, right? And that writ large means that people just don't know that the products are out there, that this entertainment industry is
every
active.
One of the people that asks, they're still making those, probably had comic books as kids.
Yeah,
but they don't
around
now.
Them, because they have some kind of reference for them.
The classic Welcome to the X-Men Rogue, Hope You Survive the Experience cover. Mm-hmm. That has been repeated throughout comics so many times. the first time I saw that, I was over at a friend's house who wasn't even a big comic book guy, and it was just laying around in his room. They were ubiquitous. This is what I'm trying to get across. They were everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? This guy didn't even read a lot of comic books, but he happened to have that one, just scattered around.
Yeah.
Whether
they got it from a friend.
Like
or
trading
just
cards
dad
or
brought it
bubble
home
gum
or whatever.
Right,
yeah. Just uncle left it or whatever.
Yeah. All right. We got to just under 10 minutes here, so I'm going to try to shut up and let you get back to what you're sharing.
So essentially, we pitched a national newsstand distributor in Walmart and several other people over many months about putting comic books back into these mass market retail locations. We got the yes around the end of this year.
Now, what did that feel like when you got that yes?
Just destiny. I don't know. It's weird. It's like I was ready for it because I've been pushing them for this for so long and elated, but scared at the same time. It's just overwhelmed. It's kind of, and then from there, it's like you have to build it all. So it was like super excited because we know we achieved this thing we worked so hard at for many, many months. That was just a vision and a pretty distant vision, I would say. And then now it's suddenly real, and then we have to make all the content.
And Elizabeth has been right there with you every step of the way.
Yes, and Patrick and others, and our partner David, and we've had several people that have come in and helped and do various things and to get this all off the ground, and people. Yeah, that
David doesn't want to be out in front, but I've gotten to know David, and he's a great guy. Mm-hmm. And he's got a great business sense.
Oh yeah, so, he was. We wouldn't be here without him. He was part of the perfect storm, meeting just the right people at just the right time. And the stories are crazy. Like the national newsstand distributor, we were in Bentonville with David and Elizabeth, myself, and they were scheduled to fly out. We got a chance meeting, and then they were scheduled to fly out. Their flight got delayed, and so they're like, "Oh, we'll come to your meeting." And then they fell in love with the project and opened a few of their doors, and it was so many coincidences. It's kind of felt like destiny was at your back there.
And that, man, I know a lot of people are thinking I'm beating a horse here, but I really got to get this across because I believe in what you're doing and I'm a big supporter. You didn't go chasing this. You didn't say, well, I've got to do Red Rooster, but I'm going to run off and try to build a whole new way of doing comic books and delivering comic. It was just all the stuff came together, and you're like, if I don't pursue this right now, that's it.
Because someone else will get it. Like someone else will figure this out and seize this opportunity. Because if the desire was clearly there through the different meetings we were having. So it's like, here we go. We just have to chase this and see where this trail leads.
And when do we think we'll start seeing these show up in retail? And it's not just Walmart, but it is mainly. Walmart's the big one, right?
Walmart is the big one and the one we're talking about now. And the program, this is kind of a pilot. We need everybody to show up to their Walmart and buy these on day one.
If you're concerned about the state of the comic book industry, show up.
Yeah, February 4th is launch date. And that may be subject to change, but I don't think so. So February 4th, show up at Walmart, clear the shelves on these. And then this is essentially creating it because there's a massive amounts of talent. And you know this, Shane, because you're in comic books,
It's a perfect segue because we got to do this quick.
Massive amounts of talent.
Yeah. How much time we got left there, John? 8 minutes. Okay. So it's like let's start off with the one that's been on cooking the longest, The Futurist.
Yes. So we have, we've engaged Butch Geis. So if you're a comic book fan, you definitely know this artist's name. He's been around since the Micronauts days, back in the early 80s. He's a seasoned
Some
talent.
people might think that his last name is Juice, but it's Geis.
Butch Geis.
Right.
So if you're a fan of Al Williamson artwork, he's very much in that vein, very classic style, but edgy and gritty and perfect for what we're doing on The Futurist, which is, kind of a Gaslight era, rough and gritty adventure, kind of a operatic
it's kind of
adventure.
It's kind of like British colonial, a little bit of steampunk in India with Indiana Jones style adventure and supernatural magic.
Yes.
And they're all, every character, even people that are opposed, all have these interesting reasons for what they're chasing down.
Yes.
So you can root for multiple sides or whatever.
It's a big the Futurist Project, which will be on the shelf at Walmart on February 4th, alongside 3 other books. Yeah. So the Futurist is one you're definitely going to want to pick up.
And it's got a monkey, a mechanical monkey. What's the mechanical monkey's name?
Sid.
Sid the mechanical monkey.
Sid the mechanical monkey. And it's got wizards and damsels and heroes and warriors and cults and temples and exotic locales. I mean, it's kind of got everything you want to do if you want to whet your appetite with a big cast, with a big adventure. It's sort of got our fix on a lot of things, on history. We're big history buffs, Patrick and myself.
I've read, you were gracious enough you gave me the outline and like a synopsis of the first issue and said, what do you think? And I was like, man, this is amazing. So it really is. And there's a dude named Teddy that has a mechanical arm.
Yes.
And they're all, real quick, what's the mystical, is it Shambhala?
They're on the path to Shambhala. They're all hunting for the mystical lost city
for
of
different
Shambhala
reasons.
for different reasons. And it's all about curses and kind of a monkey's paw kind of story.
Yeah.
So it's really one that you can feel like you've...
And the art is amazing. I mean, everything about it's amazing. I've been looking forward to the Futurist for a long time. Yeah. In fact, the Futurist, and then I got to move us on to cover the other titles. If I remember right, you were like, well, do we go with Futurist first or Red Rooster first? I mean, that's how long Futurist has been cooking, right?
It's been kind of a twinkle on Patrick and mine, our eye for like a decade.
Time. And then he gets to work with Jackson.
And he gets to work with Butch.
Guys,
Butch guys.
Butch guys. So what about Nora's Saga? Tell us about that
one. So Nora's Saga is, I would describe it as Wizard of Oz meets Vikings. So it stars a teenage girl with teen girl problems, new school, in a new apartment, a new school with a single dad, very blue collar family, and she's just sort of fascinated with these Viking fantasies, Norse stories and fantasies, and basically has there's a tragedy in the story, and she finds herself flung into a world of ice and Norse legend, essentially, and has to use her her smarts, her knowledge of the normal world to win over allies and friends that can help her find her way back. So she actually goes on her Nora's Saga, which is kind of a play on Norse saga.
Oh, nice.
So it is essentially a girl who's thrown into a Norse saga.
And that's Blake Northcutt and Kelsey Shannon. And these are all lettered by
Eric Weathers.
Eric Weathers.
Yeah, who's a really great guy. So, Blake Northcutt is the writer on this one. If you're a comic book fan, you're definitely going to hear her name. If you haven't heard it already, she's going to be I think her ceiling is very high.
Yeah,
for
she's
a rising star.
Yeah.
And then Kelsey Shannon is the artist who's, we talked about Kelsey a little earlier. He's just an incredible talent and the freest spirit you'll ever meet.
All right, we got 3 minutes, so I got to move us forward.
All right.
Next, let's hit Bass Reeves.
All right, so
this one is Futurist and Bass Reeves are probably my two personal big uns.
Yeah, Bass Reeves is. So my dad gives me a piece or a copy of the Arkansas Times about 6 or 7 years ago, and it's got this black and white grainy photo on the cover of this seasoned African American gentleman with this great
his story
epic
is
mustache.
Amazing. Yeah,
and he's like, you're going to want to take a look at this. And so I go home and read the article, and it's about this man named Bass Reeves, who was born a slave in Tennessee, finds his way to Pea Ridge. He was a slave of exceptional skill and talent, became like a horse master and a weapons master, and was known for his marksmanship. And then they wrote him off to war, where he was, I guess, an attaché to his master or whatever, and they come to blows and fight, and they get in a fight, and he rides off. So, I mean, you think about the kind of guy who would do something like that. I mean, a legend already.
Right.
So he rides out the rest of the war in the Indian Territory in Oklahoma at that time, and learns several languages, becomes a tracker, ingratiates himself in all these different cultures. And then afterwards, he makes his way into Fort Smith. So this is an Arkansas hero. Mm-hmm.
In fact, there is a U.S. Marshals Museum in Fort Smith.
And a statue of him.
Yeah, a statue of Bass Reeves in Fort Smith. He ended up becoming like the most effective, legendary lawman, like west of the Pecos, or however they say it.
Well, he was the most successful lawman of all time. Over 3,000 arrests single-handedly.
Including his own son. So there's the elements. That's what really gripped me, was the elements of a really tragic and amazing story about a family. And that's, if there's one connecting thread through all the Allegiance Arts comic books, it's going to be their stories about families. Right. It's amazing. It's his story is so much better than any fictional movie could be. It's amazing. Bass Reeves. It's a Western. Mm-hmm. It's Kevin
Grievous, yeah, that's how he pronounces
and David Williams.
David Williams, so two phenomenal talents.
Well, and David and Kevin Grievous was also instrumental with the Underworld movies.
He created it and wrote the first one.
He's a fascinating
and acted
guy.
in it.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, so we've got to end, but folks, Allegiance Arts, Indiegogo. Go to allegiancearts.com and it'll send you over to the Indiegogo, or just search for The Futurist. The Futurist, Nora Saga, Bass Reeves, Allegiance Arts, Mitch Breitweiser. So excited. Got to do this real quick. This is just for you, Mitch. Bad joke of the week. Why did the rooster cross the road?
To get to his striped pants.
No, to cock-a-doodle do something. Allegiance Arts, folks. Mitch, it's been a pleasure. Say hi to Elizabeth and everybody. Folks, we'll catch you next time on Shane Plays.
In celebration of Dragon Ball Z's 30th anniversary, fans can now experience the story of Goku in Dragon Ball Z, Kakarot, and all new role-playing video game arriving on PlayStation 4 and Xbox next January.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.